for 2017 is now open. If you'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our order of business this evening is relatively simple. I would entertain at this point a motion to approve our agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Is there any discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We welcome public comments on agenda items at this point, and I've been given a list, and it says no one. That doesn't mean that no one important is present, but no one has a comment. Okay, so our order of business then, having welcomed those that are here, we're glad that you're here and watching public business as you ought to be as citizens. Our business is to have our second hearing and potentially approval of our 2017-2018 budget. So to get discussion moving on this, I would entertain a motion for acceptance so that we may discuss whether or not we want to accept it.
Oh, all right. I move that we approve and adopt the 2017-18 North Mason School District budget.
Okay, discussion.
I'd like to hear any comments that the superintendent has.
Well, as you saw last week, Ashley has done a very thorough job of preparing our budget. It was a difficult budget to prepare this year because there are some changes coming from OSPI or through the legislature in a response to the McCleary decision, but the actual impact on the school budget this year is limited. There were pass-through, or there were would amount to pass-through COLAs for staff and some additional dollars towards staff's monthly insurance contributions. And there were some additional dollars in LAP and the other categorical programs, but that was actually also very difficult this year because the additional dollars that came through on top of the normal expected allocation that were added new through the Bill 2442 had very specific earmarks applied to them. So we're still figuring out how to spend some of that extra money, and usually that's not a problem for us, but we have very specific ways that we can. The good news is that some of the earmarks are things that we're really excited about because of our high poverty student population and some of the needs of kids in our district. They're really put together in a way that allow us to do some things we wanted to be able to have some money to do to support our kids and haven't been able to. So we have added an additional nursing position. So we have 1.8 nurses now instead of 1.0 to serve our entire district. And so we will have nurses available to kids more regularly in all of our buildings and more easily accessible in cases of need and emergency. We also, there are a lot of the new budgeted dollars were available only for specific things, and one of those things is to support behavior interventions and a multi-tier support system for helping students who may have experienced trauma and have other things in their lives that are impacting their ability to behave, so then to learn at school. So we are developing a very coherent and very broad plan for applying some specific supports in our buildings, which might include things like in-building access to mental health counseling and services. And so we're very excited about some of those things that came as a result of the additions to the budget.
Thanks.
Other comments?
I have a couple other questions, but they're not ones necessarily that we can really answer, I guess. I'm not sure we can answer. In any case, questions are just really, they're what's going to eventually happen with levies, local levies down the road, and that kind of stuff, which really isn't this budget right now.
Can sort of answer that a little bit, although there are still some major questions. But what we will see, and Ashley, jump in if you need to clarify, but what we will see is our levies that we have already approved right now will stay as they are. But as we hit the 18-19, the state will be levying some additional dollars to districts across the state, and that may decrease our amount that we get from our taxpayers. And the idea would be that because then we would be getting more apportionment from the state. We haven't seen specific dollars yet. We're just starting to get those and get to look at them. And so there may be some one-year impact on our taxpayers, that there may be 1 year where they're paying a little more than they're currently paying because of that state increase, and then it will level out and go down. But as soon as we have that information, we'll want to bring that and share that in a study session and in a board meeting so that our community is well informed well ahead of time. But we're still working on that.
If you don't mind with the call.
Please do.
Some of the information that's been presented in regards to how these levies are going to work in the future, they're sort of changing how we're going to be able to use the funds. They're now going to be considered enrichment levies. Unfortunately, they haven't come down with a lot of detail regarding what is enrichment and what will be included as an ability to spend those funds on these enrichment activities. They have come down and stated that enrichment is going to be considered items outside of what is considered basic education. So that's not a whole lot of details, but it is going to start restricting how we can spend our levy dollars, which we have not normally had those restrictions upon us. So we're going to start moving more towards where we are with the categorical funding that we're receiving right now, where there's all these restrictions. So they give you this money, but you can only spend it on this one item, and it's this one item only if you've never had that one item before, because if you've had that one item before, you're supplanting.
You don't need it.
Yeah,
Right.
You're supplanting now if you pay for it. So we're going to start going that path now with these enrichment levies. Also with the enrichment levies, they're going to be audited by SAO on a yearly basis. We have to submit a plan to OSPI stating how we're going to be spending it, and then when SAO comes in, they're going to be auditing to that plan.
And in fact, when we run an levy from here on out, we have to submit that plan and get it approved before we can take it to our taxpayers to vote on.
Well, if they're fully funding us, will we still need to run levies?
Well, they're not.
Okay. I was just
And-
hoping.
Yeah, they're not, and that's part of why the legislation called that enrichment dollars. So they have narrowly defined what full funding of basic education only is. So if they were full funding even by mine or Ashley's definition or yours of basic education, it would probably be a different amount than we're going to get. But basic education is defined very narrowly. It doesn't include a lot of the supports and interventions we have to do for our kids. Those are still in those categorical pieces. It doesn't include things like the extra above the state salary schedule, the extra dollars that our district and other districts pay staff, beyond the minimum that we're given, and so that those come out of the levy right now. It doesn't include things like athletics. It doesn't include any of the ASB after school kinds of things. All of those would still be levy funded things. So it's sort of full, but not really. And it will be interesting. They have submitted their report to the court to see if the court agrees with them that they've met the requirements or not. And we will see when the court gives its decision about that. But there will be things that won't be covered, and there will be continued discussion. The biggest thing that is on our plates this year is because the way that bill was designed, eliminated the statewide salary schedules that we used even currently as a base. And, you know, our district and other districts then had to negotiate on top of that and pay time and responsibility or tri-days. And a lot of that was paid for by levy dollars. Under the bill, our apportionment is designed to pay what the state says we can pay for our staff and what is basic education. But because the salary schedule has gone away,
Right.
every district will have to negotiate and design its own salary schedule within those dollars.
There is a bottom and a
There's a
top.
bottom end and a top end.
Okay.
But, you know, for different districts, different things may be better. And then there is the different apportionment based on the median housing cost from district to district. And so, for example, all of Mason County is at the 1.0 apportionment level. All of Kitsap County is at the 1.18. So we won't be getting as much money overall for those positions. So there are some things we'll think about doing that help us get the best people that we can with the money that we can offer. And so probably our salary schedule will look very different than one in Central Kitsap.
So there's going to be a lot of budget work, basically, in this upcoming year, once the information becomes available for us to work with. Then as the information comes down the channels and we get it and we can work through it, we'll be presenting what we can forecast for the future to the board.
Had another question. And sorry, since I missed last week, I haven't done all the homework that I need to do for
It's okay.
this, medical reasons. And I'm not going to come in with any more details. What about the transportation part?
We're still funded the same way we have been. They haven't done any better on the transportation yet.
Okay, are they working on that?
It will be an item for for them to address in the next session again. Hopefully that will happen. It's on the agenda
Yeah, we
for.
have, that's one of the things I worked for.
Right.
And so it is on the WASDA legislative agenda. And because we haven't prioritized that yet, that'll be done in September, at the September meeting. I can't tell you where it stands, but it's on the list, as well as our public. We think we've accomplished something on public records, so we're giving that a rest for a year, because we got the, no one can make a request for all your records. So that's a big substantive change, and has to specify more narrowly. So we got that, and the transportation thing on the radar. There was something else, Dan, there was three. And I was really good on all three
You
at
were.
one point. 'Cause
Well, I
really-
think you were talking about the inequity with
Oh, yes.
with the
And that's-
distribution on the
That's an
salaries.
ongoing thing that I've made it known that the present system legislates inequities. It makes the inequities between our district and larger ones a matter of law. I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's safe from the standpoint of the Republic. And I have made my position known repeatedly and will continue to do so.
And that will continue to be all of our,
Yeah.
all of our statement. We have a meeting, a group of superintendents. We are scheduling again like we did last year, individual meetings with each of the legislators who work with all of ESD 114. So that's us and some of the rest of Mason County and all of Kitsap and additional counties. And we will be talking to them individually with numbers and pictures and data points explaining why that's not okay.
Right, I am reading and hearing about, I guess, some of that. It's, in a sense, it's kind of heating up. There's people with pushing back on this thought, this is why this is not a good idea, and others that have said, well, that is a good idea. And so I really haven't made up my mind of
Well,
where I stand
yeah.
on that, but I'm trying to get more information.
What I would say is it's a really good idea if you live in Seattle or anywhere on the I-5 corridor, or if you're Kitsap County for some reason. And for the rest of the state, it isn't. So basically what they're saying is by paying us 1.0 of whatever salary dollars for our staff, and Kitsap County, another 18%. They're basically saying the kids in Kitsap County are worth more than the kids in Mason County. The teachers are worth more. And they're basing it on the median housing costs. But the median, to use the Mason Kitsap example, the difference in median housing costs between Mason and Kitsap County is 7%. So there are 3 levels that the difference could be at. It could be at 6% or 12% or 18%. So if they were following the words in the law as they passed it, then Kitsap County might be at, if we're at 0, they might be at 6, or if we're going to round up, they might be at 12, but there isn't any justification in that law for them to be at 18%. There are some other reasons, but they aren't in the words that are in the law. So, you know, I'm very worried about it. I met with a group of superintendents today, and like I said, part of what we're talking about, so is if we're gonna get the 0% level, then we're gonna have to manipulate how we build our salary schedule, because we're already gonna know, if you were a teacher and you're getting to the end of your teaching career, and your retirement is based on the average of your last 5 years, then are you gonna want to do your last 5 years in Mason County or in Kitsap County?
Mhm.
So we're going to be at a disadvantage as far as keeping our teachers for long term. So we're going to probably skew our salary schedule to ensure we get the best people early on and keep them for as long as we can, knowing that there's nothing we can do at the end of the day. And so it'll be really interesting, but I don't think it's appropriate. And in the initial, so there were multiple bills that tried to put together the funding that the legislature dealt with. And towards the very end, there was a hybrid bill that they were looking at to create how they were going to fund salary schedules. And part of that bill, because it was a hybrid between what the House Democrats originally proposed and what the Senate Republicans proposed, and this was actually a caucus of some people, a blended caucus, but mostly House Republicans. Dan Griffey was a part of it that said, okay, well, let's come up with another plan. They put a plan together, and it included this regional salary schedule because they didn't feel like there was any way they'd get the votes from the I-5 corridor without it. But it also included a salary adjustment for high poverty rural schools. That part didn't make it into the final law. If they had done that, that would have balanced it for people like Mason County. And we wouldn't be as great, we might be even, but we certainly wouldn't be at as great a disadvantage. So that's why we're going to keep lobbying and pushing for it. That doesn't actually take place until the 18-19 year. That's why we have a year to figure out how we're going to do all of that. And we'll be lobbying for that to change. And, you know, to make it a little bit funny, frankly, when I went through it and looked at all the lists, the first thing I did was notify all of our legislators and OSPI and everyone else I could think of that, well, okay, so if you're going to do a Mason County number and a Kitsap County number, North Mason School District is partially in Kitsap County too, so we will take the Kitsap County funding level. Thank you.
Yes, good, very good.
Yeah.
It didn't go very well, but
Well, it does put a burden on districts like ours
mhm.
to have to put enough money into that salary schedule because
And
frankly,
if they're not going to give us the money to put into it,
where do we get it?
mhm.
We'll have to ask our community for it. And if I was a new teacher, brand new teacher, and I had a job offer in Kitsap County and a job offer in Mason County, which one would I take? I mean, we're not only going to lose our tenured teachers, our really experienced
Well, but
teachers, but we won't have access to the brand new, bright, excited teachers.
Well, and this is all something we have to negotiate, but one thing we might look at is, yeah, we might lose access unless, since we have X amount of dollars and we have to pay a minimum of $40,000, we might decide some of those bigger districts are paying $40,000 at the beginning. We're going to pay more at the beginning so we can get the bright new teachers for as long as we can keep them.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just kind of have to see how that works because it's something we'll have to work with NMEA on
Yeah.
building a plan.
And I would just like to add, Art, that as you've seen in this short discourse, our superintendent has already taken the lead on that, and that's why it's important that we have in the past, as this issue is developed, we have worked well as a team, and I've gone to the various legislative boards that I'm on, pushing this issue with information. And as Dan has indicated, we've got a long way to go on this. So I'm thinking of what we need in the future is what I would call Zen fury. And that is, we should meet this thing with fury because it is really outrageous. I mean, every ideal of responsible education in a republic is violated. I went to a small school in my first 4 grades. You can't get much smaller than John Day, Oregon. And there were very bright people. There was a whole range of people. But I have, I'm here now in another small town. We fought hard for what we've got to make this school. And we want the best funding we've got for our kids who we believe deserve an education second to none. There's the fury. The Zen is the intelligence and the coolness to sustain over time our message that we will neither give up nor allow ourselves to lapse into the status of cranks. So we are going to be intelligent and we're going to be furious and we're in it for the long haul.
Here, here.
John always says it nice. I think it's really unfortunate that anytime education has to take a back seat to equality. I mean, and that should never, it shouldn't be because you're in a poverty area that your school gets less money. That doesn't ever make any sense to me. So I love the way you put it. So I'm just like simple over here, but you have a very nice way of putting that. So thank you.
Well, you had another issue you were going to raise.
No, just a further comment along that. One of the things that has bothered me about this whole process is that at this time nationally, we're short of teachers. And so it's a teacher's market, if you want to call it that way. And I don't like to think of it like that. And it's the teacher's market that they can pick and choose where they're going to go because they have, everybody's trying to get them. And
Well-
it doesn't mix well with this process that the state is setting up. That, you know, I don't have all the information I want to hear to understand it at this point yet, but I just see that dichotomy. But also, even if there's plenty of money, there's other issues involved with why are we short of teachers? Well, a lot of the reason is because of the climate for the public climate about teachers, whether it's the government, the public, or whatever, has been negative. We've been blaming teachers for everything. We've been giving them a bad rap, and so a lot of good teachers. I'm done. I don't need to be disparaged for the good work I'm doing, so I'll move on. That's a reality. That's national. That's not just here locally. That's been a national problem that's been going on for 15, 20, almost 20 years now. It's changing, but not quick enough, and that clashes with a stair-step salary schedule.
Well, it does,
Bothers me.
and I will tell you that if you talk to the HR director in Lake Washington or in Edmonds, they don't see a teacher shortage. It's the rural districts in our state that are facing the shortage. However, I will say within the last 2 days, we've had the first 2 days of our new teacher training. We have an amazing class of very talented and gifted new teachers that are going to be meeting our kids on the first day of school.
Awesome.
So, and some of them, even though we don't get to pay as much, some of them are coming to us from some of those bigger districts on the I-5 corridor for the quality of life of living in North Mason. So, you know,
Right,
we're
it's where
really
the heart is.
proud of the new class of teachers.
awesome.
We just want to be able to continue to recruit groups of teachers of this quality and keep them.
Good job.
That's that for me. So.
I'm sure it's also part of the quality of professional life that we have here as well. I just want to add that as a tribute to our chief executive for budget, that one of the things I really look for in these budgets is our tradition of keeping a balance, of keeping funds in reserve so that we can meet a hiccup in the road. I mentioned it at the last meeting, and you've heard me say it before, and you've lived through it, that time when the legislature gave us the money, then asked it back in the middle of the year. Because we had a cushion, we were able to deal with that with no riff. And and one change in the bus formula. You know, David Peterson made it very clear to me, one change hiccup in the bus formula, and we're in trouble. So I think it is one of the things I really like about this budget, and I hope to safeguard is our reserve. We're not operating on Pollyanna principles. We are looking very hard at every item and making sure that we need what we're asking for and making sure that we've got a reserve in case we make a mistake. Any other discussion?
No.
Okay, hearing no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion to approve the budget, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion passes. This brings us then to our adjournment, and I will turn to Director Kreutzer to give us an assessment.
Krotzer, and yes. I don't
Error.
usually do that. My husband, he will constantly fix that. But okay, well, I will read through these and then mark them off at the end. The agenda was well planned to focus on the real work of the board, and the board followed its agenda and did not allow itself to get sidetracked. Board members prepared for and contributed to the meeting. Absolutely, and we were helped to stay on track here by Ashley there. The meeting proceeded without interruptions and distractions. The board's deliberations and decision-making processes were public. Participation was balanced. All participated and no one dominated. Members listened attentively, avoiding side conversation. Work was conducted in an atmosphere of trust and openness, and meeting participants treated each other with respect and courtesy. I think we are satisfactory on all of those. And the next group here, board actions occur at the policy level rather than the operational level. The board reviews policy about each topic before discussing that issue. In writing additional policies, the board starts with a board statement and becomes more detailed in a logical and disciplined sequence. And I believe that's the one we NA every time. And then, or unless we are doing new policies. The board minimizes time spent monitoring past performance. The board routinely dedicates time to reviewing, improving its own process. The board clarifies priorities, values when considering potential outcomes, beneficiaries, and costs of outcomes. The board follows an annual calendar based on a plan for doing its work. The board chair helps the board efficiently conduct its meeting, as always. And the board spends most of its time deliberating issues, defining and clarifying its vision, and linking with its community as opposed to fixing things. And the board supports the superintendent in any reasonable interpretation of its policies. Absolutely. I believe that we are satisfactory, yes, on all of those.
Okay. There's an opportunity for comments from the public. Even after a performance of that quality, there's no comments from the public.
No comment.
Whoa!
Okay, we've heard from the people. So, is there any comments from the board?
All I want to say is it's just really exciting to see all the kids out and about and up here. I was up here for the band practicing their halftime performance. That was so cool. And the parents were all over. I mean, they brought their lawn chairs and set them up and stayed for the whole thing. And then the high school football team came on to practice and everybody just stayed and watched. I mean, it's a hub up here this time of year. So it was fun. There was excitement in the air.
Well, that's great to hear. I am very heartened by what Dan has told us about new people coming on and attracting talent. In my former line of work, the selection of graduate students was and as well as chair, is one of the most fundamental things we do because it's going to shape the program for years to come. And I think on this level, here we got talented teachers, and one of the things I'd hope we'd be able to do is attract quality people and make this place safe for professionalism. So have a peace between the public and the institution, and I think we're on a good track and going productively.
And if you guys haven't, I'm sure you guys have seen it, but the football has the turf down and it's all pretty and bright green and nobody should be walking in the thing down there. So spread the word. But it is gorgeous down there. It's bright and cheery, and I think we made a really good decision at redoing that field. And it actually has a really awesome feeling down there, just in that little nook down there, and it's all bright, and I just think it's awesome.
Yeah.
So
The turf is in, all of our field events are in, although there is a fence going in part of where you guys are walking for the throwing events. That's going to all be fenced off soon. And the lights won't be done until after the season, because the soonest the company can change the lights, we have lights, but the new lights can't be changed till November 6th, and that's the day they're starting the work. And we still are trying to get on the schedule for the scoreboard, so that probably will happen during the season. One game will have the old one, and the next one will have the new one. So we'll just see how that goes, but it's very exciting. Mark has the Pee Wee football night scheduled for our first game. So on September 1st, we play Shelton on our new field, and all the little Pee Wee guys will get to march out on there on that turf, and so that will be really exciting. Guys and girls, probably.
All right. Well, with those comments, our next school board meeting will be held on September 21st, 2017 at 6:30. And I think that's one I'll have to be absent on, because that's when we have the legislative delegates conference, if I'm not mistaken.
It's Friday, your
Oh.
conference.
Yeah, you have to be here.
Okay, good.
you have to be here. Wait,
I'm
are
so
you
gratified.
here
I
next
think
time?
it's Friday and Saturday. for
Yeah,
you.
I know, I may have to get there early, but I hope to be here. That would be a great thing if I were.
We need you.
We need to
Might
have a
need-
quorum that
Yes,
night, because
I-
we have to interview the people, the interim position.
Well, good. Then I trust that, well, my first obligation is here anyway, so looks like I'm needed as well as,
We want you.
well, I appreciate that. So with that, our meeting of today is adjourned.
So would any